Yeah, hey, I guess these trigger warnings are becoming a lot more frequent in these episodes, but I guess it's just kind of the nature of media. But anyways, yeah. So today's episode we talk about suicidal ideation, violence against women again, and yeah, if this is a problem for you guys, no harm, no foul in skipping out as always. If not, enjoy the episode. Okay. So the other day, right, I was talking to you about Spider-Man because we were playing Spider-Man 2.
I am, in fact, the Spider-Man.
You are not the Spider-Man. I am the Spider-Man! And I said, because we were trying to figure out what to read next for the podcast, I said, hey, you know what's like a brand synergy thing for right now?
Kraven's Last Hunt.
Kraven's Last Hunt. Hi guys, welcome to Comic Book Report. Today we're reading, we've read Kraven's Last Hunt. This episode is, we were supposed to read Kraven's Last Hunt like 2 months ago, and then we got busy doing other things.
Yeah.
Like playing video games we wanted to play and having depression.
Yeah, shout out insert hot game right now.
Shout out Baldur's Gate 3, shout out Yakuza, shout out
Spider-Man 2 not winning a single award at the VGNs.
I had someone that this might get cut out, but small tangent. I had someone explain to me that it kind of makes sense that Baldur's Gate 3 won the award over Spider-Man because it's got a lot more replayability factor.
Yeah.
And it being despite being a numbered sequel, a unique like game.
Oh, here's the thing. As much as I love the Spider-Man 2 game,
Baldur's Gate clears.
Baldur's Gate clears. Like,
yeah. Holy
real.
shit. Oh, we have hot chocolate today because it's the middle of winter, which
it has like three like. Even though the story can be completed within like 15 hours, it technically has like 3,000 something hours worth of like gameplay.
Yeah, you can really indulge. Anyways, so Kraven's Last Hunt. Do you want me to start off with the history?
You start off with the history, to be honest.
Yeah, I did my research this time, unlike last time where I didn't really touch the research aspect of Jeff Lemire's Moon Knight, mostly because it was a recent comic. Okay, so Kraven's Last Hunt was written by a guy named JM Demettais, right?
Yeah.
So JM Demettais is a pretty important guy in comics. He's done a lot of stuff. He's actually about to, I've been looking on Twitter, he's actually about to start another Spider-Man run, I believe is what it said. But he's pretty important. He's done a lot of work on, he's done Justice League International, which is pretty big. He's done some work on Captain America, Dr. Fate, Daredevil, Doctor Strange, various other Marvel characters. He also redefined the Spectre in the early 2000s because the Spectre, the DC character. Yeah. Because I'm not sure if you knew this, but whenever one of my favorite Green Lanterns, Kyle Rayner, became Green Lantern, Hal Jordan became this character called Parallax.
Yeah.
And whenever he died, he became the Spectre. So he kind of made, for a period of time, the Spectre, who was normally this one guy named, like, Chim Corrigan, I think it was. He made him the Spectre. He made Hal Jordan the Spectre instead, like, in the 2000s. But that's the thing I know him most for, but he's definitely done a lot of work. He apparently did some scripted episodes for the 1980s version of Twilight Zone. I looked that up. That was interesting. And then it's done, the art's done by Mike Zeck, who's done art for Secret Wars, Punisher, Shang-Chi stuff, some DC stuff. The JM Demettais is a pretty good guy. There's a lot of people who call him his favorite writer. This is honestly to show kind of my like intermediate, and by intermediate I still mean like beginner status as like a comic reader. This is kind of my first thing by JM Demettais that I've like read, you know? And it's hard for me aside from this to think on the spot of stuff that he's done aside from the Spectre thing. But the history of the comic is that apparently, so the original plan was that this was going to be a Wonder Man-like comic, which Wonder Man is a Marvel character, not a DC character. And the whole idea that it was going to be him being buried by his half-brother and then climb out of the drag. This got rejected, right? Because, who gives a shit about Wonder Man? Then later, he wanted to work it as a Batman story, where it was the Joker and Batman, the Joker kind of becomes sane because he's killed Batman, right? This got rejected because it was being workshopped around the same time as the Killing Joke.
Okay.
And, those kind of themes are pretty similar. And then eventually he got to the Spider-Man idea, right? Which, once he got it as a story, and because he decided on Kraven, it was decided to be Kraven when it was originally going to be a new villain, but I think the use of Kraven was actually a really good choice because Kraven as a character I don't know how to explain Kraven pre Last Hunt. Like I said, I haven't really read a lot of those earlier comics, but he always gave off the vibe of like kind of like a hokey '60s villain.
Yeah.
Because he's like this big game hunter. Do you know that song in the Fallout 3 soundtrack where it's like, I don't want to leave the Congo? That's how I feel about Kraven. I feel like he's that song up until he does what he does in this work. But
yeah, no, I mean, I figured he was just kind of like a golden age villain that they turned like dark for this comic because of the way he talked throughout it, being like, oh, what are you doing this? You're the big man hunter. You don't use guns. You don't do all this. You come at me with
spears
and spears
and just a gun. Yeah. So I wanted to talk to you. First off, I want to know your opinions because the big thing that I like is that it's split in between his three runs, or three of his runs, because Peter Parker, Spider-Man in general, has had a lot of runs going on at once. Like even now, I think there's like 3-4 runs going on right now. That's main continuity Spider-Man alone.
I was just about to say about that because I feel like I'm not like this does good on a standalone, but there's very clearly context from certain parts that you are missing by reading just the last one, specifically with Vermin.
Yeah, Vermin.
There's a lot of stuff that they were like, you should already like, you know, because they talk about the fight between it's Spider-Man, Captain America, and Vermin.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, I didn't know that happened.
I didn't know it happened either. But
I mean, it works out though.
No, it works out. I feel like they're good enough at explaining the shit that matters. Which I wanted before we talk about the first issue, because I do really want to get into you about the first issue, because I thought that was a really good kinetic issue. How'd you feel about the work overall?
I thought it was pretty good. I like Kraven as a character there because we're gonna have to put a Spider-Man's 2 spoiler onto this video.
Yeah, guys, I'm gonna put a like always. I realize the last 2-3 things we've done, the last 2 comics we've done, we've had to put spoiler warnings on it. Yeah. So I'm gonna have to do that again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's important because for me, even though I've always known of Kraven and the Spider-Man villains in general, Spider-Man 2 was still my first indulgence in Kraven as a character, and so I like seeing the difference between that Kraven and what's in the comics, because how they portray Kraven in this one, I like a little bit more than the Spider-Man 2 one. I feel like they're very similar in certain aspects, and the main reason I like him, I feel like they lean on this more in the comic than they do in the game. But it kind of fits that media language of male insecurity brought forth as a power fantasy.
Yeah.
Kind of
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, instead of, because Kraven's
you guys can see the real time, oh shit, I didn't think of that. You guys can see, in real time when I'm fuck, that's a good idea.
Yeah, because it's when you listen to the words that he says and the actions that he takes place in part of it, it's very clear that Kraven's actions comes from a place of
insecurity and infidelity
and self-loathing.
Yeah, he hates himself.
Yeah, he hates himself. He hates what he's become, and the actions that he does in this is just simply, he hates himself so much that he has to make sure that he will always mentally dominate someone that he has been fighting with for years now.
Yeah, he needs a perceived enemy.
Yeah, and that's what this kind of does, is that he marks the end of his journey by finally destroying that perceived enemy, because the whole point about Kraven is that he's gotten pushed to a point where he's just well, the only hill I have is this enemy, and once I beat him, I'm done. What else is there?
Well, what else is there to do once you beat the quote-unquote greatest prey? It's because my perception of Kraven pre this and pre Spider-Man 2 is he's kind of the most dangerous game coded.
Yeah.
Where he's just I like hunting humans, and the spider is my biggest enemy.
And the spider is better than the human.
He's the Spider-Man.
Yeah, literally.
That's my perception of this, but I feel with this, it reframes a lot of that as a deeply broken individual who copes through violence. Which, can we just talk about the first few pages of the first chapter where he's neon fighting a Sasquatch? Naked, and he punches the head off? What the hell's that?
Yeah, no, I'm glad that you did the history thing, because whenever you talked about pitching it for Joker and Batman, I was really going to say that this feels like type of bullshit someone would write for like Joker v Batman.
Yeah, but I would argue that now that we have a finished product, this wouldn't have worked for Joker.
This would have been a lot better, yeah. 'Cause
even if it would be retooled for those characters, because the big thing that I really liked that I wanted to get into about the first chapter was Peter Parker's monologue going to see that 2-Bit Gangster where he's like, what if they knew I was just a man?
Yeah.
They see me as a monster, but I'm just a guy.
Yeah.
Just as flesh and blood as the rest of them, you know?
Yeah, no,
that's such a sad first chapter. It made me feel.
I like the monologue a lot in this one because I like the idea that they are like they have multiple conversations going on at once without it getting too busy, and I feel like that's a really good way that they do intensity because you have like not only do you have like actual dialogue, you have like their inner monologue, and then sometimes you have like dual inner monologue.
Yeah, I was gonna talk to you about that. How do you feel about like the darker panels where it's like to me it's like intrusive thoughts.
Yeah, that's exactly
because I like that part where you were talking about it, which because the basic plot of the first chapter is Kraven gets ready to do his last hunt against Spider-Man. Spider-Man visits a recently deceased 2-Bit Gangster named Joe Face, and he's like, I know. And he's waxing poetic on the idea that, who's next, right?
Yeah.
And once Kraven gets up to him, there's this part towards the end where he's like, yeah, Kraven's just gonna chuck a spear at me, and he's gonna fucking, he's gonna take me home, he's gonna make a whole thing, and I'm gonna get out of it. And there's red speech, or thought squares that are just like, is that a rifle? A rifle?
Yeah. It's all intrusive thought.
Yeah.
And I feel like the intrusive thought bubbles, I feel like only come in and it adds those 3 dialogues when it's supposed to be an intense scene, because it's also strips where they're very back to back to back, there's not a lot happening in between them. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm showing him the image of Kraven punching the head off of a Sasquatch.
It's just I feel like it adds an extra level of intensity, because in that first chapter towards the end, because if you recall, Kraven drugs him before he even gets to him with the rifle.
Yeah.
And he starts hallucinating because he thinks he
sees Joe Face.
Yeah, Joe Face, but it's Kraven.
Yeah. See, I'm reading back, and he's talking. He's like, Joe Face is dead. Why should I care? And he's explaining he's just a 2-Bit Gangster, and just shake him up for information. And he's like, they can't get the name of Spider-Man out of their mouths. They're scared, but there is no Spider-Man. Spider-Man's a myth. And he says, I'm just Peter Parker, and I guess I do care. Which, that's a lot of feeling, because as you know, I love it when superheroes especially, are empathetic. Oh shit, I'm also empty. Sorry, we made hot chocolate before the start of the recording.
And I'm pretending to sip it.
And we're already out of it. If we had a recording, one of these isn't going to record us playing, it's just us just going... What a delicious flavor profile of Swiss Miss hot chocolate. bought it Walmart for $7 because it's a big pack. But I do really like that perspective, and how he sees Joe Face because he's thinking about death.
Yeah.
And he's thinking about it because he's been the character Ned Leeds, who is unfortunately not the CEO of Sex in the comics. He
white.
He died not too long ago. If I'm correct, this is not too far away from the Hobgoblin storyline, which Ned Leeds was important to, due to editorial reasons. But I kind of like that where he's like, Ned Leeds yesterday, Joe Face today, who's tomorrow? I kind of like that. I like how he goes, and he's just like, oh, I'm here to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Which is a type of empathy towards people that mean you harm that I just do really find enjoyable for superheroes.
Yeah, I'm glad that they did this, and I'm gonna ramble on about another review that we did, because when we went on a rant about the Batman, if it was the Batman that did this scene, it would have been why should I care that they're dead? I'm here to bring justice to Gotham. Instead of Spider-Man being man, that dude's dead, and all of his posse is scared of me, but deep down, I'm just a guy who cares, and they shouldn't, because to me, I read it in a way of, they're scared of the Spider-Man, but in reality, there is nothing to be scared of.
Yeah.
It's just they're people who are, it's people who are misplaced by society, and had to deal with Joe Face and all these people, so it's it's the idea that, they're scared of the Spider-Man as criminals, but in reality, he's a person who cares about people.
Oh, I forgot that fucking Kraven eats a bunch of spiders. We'll get to that. Keep talking. We'll talk about the spider eating thing in a minute.
Oh, trust me, I was bringing that up.
Okay, good. I'm glad you were getting to that. Continue.
But like, because it's ultimately one of those things. It's like, because in Batman, in a Batman story, you're scared of the Batman because you're robbing a bank. In Spider-Man, it's less of you're scared of the Spider-Man because you're robbing a bank. It's more of the Spider-Man's like, why are you robbing the bank?
He makes
which
you.
I feel like is more
Spider-Man, like, because he's not Batman. He talks. He talks a lot.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is like,
Bro is a yapper.
Bro is a certified yap professor.
Yeah.
But
D1 yapper.
D1 yapper. Was it me that said that or you?
I think it was me.
Okay. But like, yeah, no, because a lot of times he'll be like, "What's up, Shocker? What you doing robbing banks again, bitch?" And Shocker has to, like, a character like Shocker has to contend with the fact that he is, like, doing this act. Instead of, like, you know, if Mr. Freeze robs a bank and Batman beats the shit out of him, he's quiet. He's just like...
I was saying, because every medium I've been exposed to of these two characters that I'm comparing right now, every time it's like Batman, right? Mm-hmm. The only time I learn about, like, a fucking Mr. Freeze is whenever I'm collecting tapes in a video game, or it's randomly someone's asking him why Mr. Freeze does what he does. Versus Spider-Man, who is just like, yeah, when he fights in the moment, he's talking to them and he's like, we can help you out of this. Like, why are you doing this? We could be helping you. I can help you. Let's fix this. Or he's like, when he's not there, he's openly thinking about, like, the Shocker and why he's doing what he's doing.
Especially since they've made a concerted effort over the last, like, 10, 20 years or so to frame the Shocker as not all that much in a different position from Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Like, which is my favorite version of Shocker, is the characterization of him as just kind of like this 2-bit, like, C-tier who's, like, doing it because he has to make rent.
Yeah.
Which is not too dissimilar from when Peter is Parker.
Yeah. And, like, put it up to, like, I think there's maybe been, like, 2 things of Batman media I've consumed where people are like, wow, I really feel for you, Mr. Freeze. You're just doing this because your wife would die. Like, that, like, the only medium that I can think that has done that is, I think it was kind of like that in the Batman video game.
In Arkham.
And
which it's not super well done.
Harley Quinn comedy show.
If you watch Batman the Animated Series, that first episode with Mr. Freeze is really good, and that's the one that redefined him.
Really?
I really like it. I enjoy when Batman has an empathetic lens to his villains, because I hear a lot of people who are diehard Batman fans say that's an important part of the character. It's just not. The problem is it's not as central as a character like Superman or Spider-Man. Anyways, Kraven eats a bunch of spiders.
Yeah, he does eat a bunch of spiders.
So I get why he does the spider thing, but that's the fastest I've ever read panels in my life.
Yeah, no,
that's so gross. That's so fucking gross. Because I know you are not all too fond of spiders.
I am, in fact, a giant arachnophobe. Yeah. I do not want the spiders getting married.
I think they just got eaten by a Russian dude. I'm gonna be totally honest, man. I'm gonna be 100% honest with you.
Slavic. He comes from a made-up Russian country.
Doesn't he say he's Russian?
Yeah, he does. I'm just fucking with you.
Yeah, don't fuck with me, bitch. I know everything.
It's because in the because I was actually wanting to talk about that, because in the second Spider-Man game, they make up a country for him. While in this one, and this is where I feel like it leans more into that insecurity power fantasy, because in a lot of the insecure power fantasies, you see a lot of those dudes hitting like real big red flags and like same things you would see in like extremely alt-right cultures, which is, you know, like the incel territories.
Is blaming like, others.
Yeah, where it's like online fascists, where he's blaming others because
his monologue is he's like my family was happy in Russia, and then the Lenins and the Trotskys took over, and our riches were, you know.
I don't even remember him even name dropping Lenin. All that.
He name drops Lenin and Trotsky specifically.
I say because the big thing that I remember is him saying that they had to move to America due to Russian decadency, which decadency and degeneracy is a lot of times when talked about in like society crumbling is giant red flags of like incel alt-right, like neo-Nazi, neo-fascist kind of talks you hear online.
Yeah.
Because that's where you get like the Chud Wojaks that are like, the West has fallen. Like, that's Kraven. The Russia has fallen.
Yeah, which he does kind of have that vibe to him. And that's because, like, no well-adjusted person eats a bunch of spiders naked in a room.
Well, it's because... Okay, counter-argument. Isn't the whole spider scene, isn't that when he's, like, tripping dick?
Okay. That's actually much later. What you're thinking of is when he fights the big spider? That's much later. He eats a bunch of spiders, then he goes and he attacks Spider-Man.
I could have sworn
It happens twice! It happens more than once.
Okay.
It happens more than once. I'm showing him right now. So so it's this. He gives the money, decent box in the ground, right?
Yeah, but like, show me the last scene with Kraven before the spider eating scene. Because, hang on, let me see it.
Yeah, no, I'm giving him my phone. We usually keep things... Oh, my cat just dropped something. Okay. Get down, baby.
Because I swear to the Lord, it like reveals that he's like tripping.
He's tripping down the line. What you're thinking of is much later. It's like the second issue. Yeah, see, because he punches off the Yeti head.
The Yeti head, yeah, okay. Maybe it's right after Spider-Man I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
No. Wait, hang on.
No, he's just eating spiders.
No, dude just eats spiders.
Dude just eats spiders! I told you!
I could have swore...
I startled the cat by yelling, eat spiders.
Because in my mind, I thought he tripped twice, which was the spider eating and the scene down the line, but nah, dude's just certified Sigma male, I'm him, Patrick Bateman, Bill.
Dude, he ate a bunch of spiders.
Something about you.
We're gonna get content ID'd.
Oh, sorry, my bad. Cut that out.
I'm not cutting that out. Anyways, no, no well-adjusted man eats a bunch of spiders. Spiders. Oh, someone called Dave Grohl. I gotta make sure he's safe.
Not the foos.
Anyways, no well-adjusted man eats a bunch of spiders naked in a room and then goes fights the spiders man. That's all I'm saying, is you can't be happy with your life, my girlfriend.
Well, I mean, there's the foreshadowing of, like, what happens at the end with, like, in that scene before he eats spiders, and in between, like, the Peter Parker scene where he's, like, talking about, like, you know, my greatest hunt, you know.
Yeah.
He says that, like, he's dying. And that this is going
See,
to
I saw that as a metaphorical sense of him dying, because he's that.
Yeah, same.
There's no massive spoilers for Spider-Man 2. There's no cancer pills in his pocket.
Exactly, and that's where I was kind of questioning on like where this was leading, because even though I know how Kraven's hunt ends before I read it, I thought maybe that's where they got the cancer part of Spider-Man 2 is that maybe he had cancer in the story, but no, this is purely metaphorical and like in his head, which I think is probably I don't know. To me, that's a better option than the cancer option, because I feel like the cancer option Spider-Man 2 was, I don't want to say a cop-out, but like I feel like those stories, they make themselves a lot lighter by giving, instead of people just being like just fucked, they have to give them like really big reasons. Because like, don't get me wrong, a lot of those villains in the Spider-Man games do have big reasons for doing what they do, and they explain like all the backstories of the villains in like the first game of the Sinister Six. But Kraven, on the other hand, like, they weren't just gonna put like, oh, he's mentally fucked and that's why he's going after the Spider-Man and destroying New York. It has to be, I have cancer and I need to beat the strongest thing on Earth or die trying.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like, don't get me wrong, that's a good story plot point, but
he goes and attacks one Spider's man.
Yeah, and he pulls up with the gat on the O block.
There's not a lot really to say about that fight aside from the fact that, like, you know,
it's pretty one-sided.
Well, yeah, it's pretty one-sided, but Spider-Man's like, it's gonna be the way it is every time. He's gonna take me home. He's gonna tickle my butthole. He's gonna be like, yes, great hunt, great hunt, great hunt. And then I'm gonna get out. And then he sees the gun, and we get,
Spider-Man
which again,
was caught lacking. That's what happened. He was caught lacking. He pulled out the gat, and Spider-Man's like, hey, yo, is that the red dot? And then he gets shot.
Yeah, basically. Like, honestly, it was the 90s, so they definitely didn't talk like that, but
they did, just not in a white Spider-Man comic.
Oh yeah, he says he's out of his, and then and then he gets shot. He gets shot in the face. We get a funeral for Spider-Man, mostly wordless, which I like. How'd you feel about the spider burning bright in the forest of the night? What immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? How'd you feel about that?
I feel like
Kraven's a fucking pretentious bitch.
Yeah, if it's a pretentiousness, and I feel like with the beginning of him talking about his family, it kind of goes still with like the mental illness stuff, because he's clearly a man that was traumatized when he was young.
Yeah.
And like, despite how you feel about the events that inspired, Kraven's family, what it came from.
Yeah.
I'm sure the nobility of Russia in that time probably has like family-long trauma of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of makes sense that he does this like little nursery rhyme thing, because like not only is it pretentious, but I feel like it comes from a place of like infantilism, which I feel like a lot of like when it talks about male insecurities and like the men's mental illness is used a lot to specify kind of like they were doomed from the beginning kind of deal. Like there's been problems and traumas since they can remember kind of deal. And so like it fits with his character really well. So I don't really have a problem with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I feel like the big thing that happens in this comic that I feel like everyone talks about that makes it unique is this brief period of time whenever Kraven was Spider-Man.
It was kind of epic. He starts tripping dick.
Well, yeah, so the thing that makes him, like, him is that, like, his whole plot is not just kill Spider-Man. It's become Spider-Man, prove he's better, and then,
because Kraven's whole thing is that it's not to kill the Spider-Man, it's... To him, the greatest hunt is to defeat the Spider-Man. And for him to defeat the Spider-Man, it's not to kill him, but to show him that not only could Kraven kill him himself,
but he could beat him better
than him. And he has to live with that for the rest of his life, knowing that Kraven could beat him and be better.
Yeah.
And I feel like,
I love that I love that the revolutionary way that Kraven defeats the Spider-Man is that he learned what a rifle is.
Yeah. Kraven's like, I've learned one thing in America. Gun. Yeah. Because I think, I'm trying to remember, because that was the end of issue 1, right? Was him getting showers at issue 2.
It's the end of issue 1.
Because I know from that there's
this book has pretty this book has pretty phenomenal pacing. Yeah. So it's chapter 1 or issue 1. Funeral. Eats spiders. Kills Spider.
Yeah, you see Kraven starting to make his own black suit.
Well, he already has his own black suit.
Oh yeah, that's true. He has it. You're right.
And number 2,
the spider eating scene.
Yeah, the spider. Yeah. So the spider eating, which I would argue is, my tailor told me I had to eat a couple spiders whenever I got a shirt.
Where do you think he got the silk from?
From me eating spiders alone?
Yeah, he ate spiders. He's able to shit out spider webs.
No, I ate the spiders.
Oh, you ate the spiders?
Yes, I ate the spiders.
Have some spider webs?
No, I'm good, man.
Oh, okay.
I don't got any right now. I don't know, man. I haven't had the time to go catch some spiders.
So real.
So spider catching after the recording?
Yeah, man.
You're like out.
Yeah, out. For real.
No, anyway, so we see Vermin because it's one Spider's man looking forlornly at a grave, and then it's revealed to be one Kraven's last hunt, and he sits there in one Spider's man costume. And then it cuts to a woman, I think, and then she gets eaten by Vermin. And Vermin's like, yum.
Yeah.
Vermin...
Well, is that how issue 2 starts? Because
issue 2 starts
with Mary Jane.
Issue 2, actually, Mary Jane's later in that issue.
Is it?
But,
could you tell that I didn't reread before I came to this recording?
I mean, I don't reread before I come to the recording.
For some reason in my mind, I have it as Mary Jane first.
No, it's not Mary Jane first. We find out about Vermin, and Vermin's like, why would I go out there? I'm perfect.
Spider-Man's out there.
The Captain Flags.
Yeah, he doesn't know Captain America's name, so it's just Captain Flags. At first, when I read that, I was like, is that Captain America? Because, like, I would not put it past me for them to randomly be like, yeah, it's last story, Spider-Man teamed up with...
Captain Flag.
Yeah, D-list hero, Captain Flag, that is, like, he lives in shitty apartment downtown New York, but sometimes helps people.
Yeah.
But,
no, but it's Captain America.
Yeah, he eats a woman.
Yeah, he's a cannibal. He's fucking... They ate a couple women in this, dude. Holy shit, I didn't expect to see a couple women be eaten, dude. I came here to watch my fun, silly, uplifting comic about a man killing another man and taking the skin.
Well, it's a very interesting thing to talk about with the whole cannibal thing, because I know Kraven brings it up whenever he like, later in the story.
Yeah.
But, like, can you even call this fellow a cannibal? He's more, like,
monstrous
beast than he is, like, man.
I mean, he's still a humanoid killing and eating other humanoids.
I guess.
But, like...
If I killed an orc, and I ate an orc.
We're not having the goddamn is it cannibalism debate. We've had this debate multiple times, me and other friends. Is it cannibalism if you eat a fantasy race? If I kill and eat an elf?
Okay, to be fair, that's a stupid argument because they're not real. But then again, I guess you could say the same thing.
We are talking about Spider... We are currently in a recording where we are talking about Spider-Man getting shot by Kraven of the Last Hunter.
Okay.
And him fighting a rat man.
Counter argument, Trent. Counter argument. My mom called Spider-Man yesterday to tell him I didn't eat my vegetables. Alright?
Mom, don't tell Spider-Man.
Mom, please don't tell Spider-Man.
Okay. Vermin's a big rat.
He controls the rats, yeah.
Yeah, he controls the rats. How's he do that? What is he, a rat man?
Yeah, real. Insert. Steph looking at me like that. He's just like famous DC villain, the Rat Catcher.
I would not call that a famous DC villain, but
What are you talking about? There's a whole movie around the character.
There is not a whole movie around the Rat
Yeah,
Catcher.
it's called Suicide Squad.
Oh, damn it, you're right.
Yeah, they have Rat Catcher 2.
I will always love that movie for making a Superman villain the main character.
Yeah, real.
Bloodsport's a Superman villain.
Yeah, I know.
Makes my dick hard, honestly. Anyways. So yeah, he says yum, which I think is really funny whenever he eats a woman, because isn't that really funny that the big rat that kills people and eats them says yum? Isn't that really funny? This is a story about insecurity, and the rat man says yum.
He's literally Mr. Gouda.
Okay, so then it's the Mary Jane scene. The Mary Jane scene, I think, is really interesting, because she's like, oh, I'm supposed to be having fun in married life. I'm supposed to be getting,
down by the Spider-Man.
Yeah, I was supposed to be drinking delicious, over-expensive drinks in, like, Aruba. But instead I'm in New York while it's raining, and I haven't seen my husband in a week. Hey, Mary Jane. Oh, no!
Yeah, and then she's just like, because that's when she starts, like, it kind of panels her as, like, her overthinking, right? Because at first she starts off with no concern, and then very quickly she gets the red bubble, ooh wee mama, where the red bubble's like, Peter's dead. Spider-Man's dead. And then she's like, you have Mary Jane. Yeah. And so she has, like, the red intrusive bubble of, like, oh, Peter's dead, blah, blah. And then, like, her mental bubble is saying, it's like, no, he's been doing Spider-Man since high school.
Like, he
knows what
he's not gonna die.
Yeah, he's not
That's
gonna
not
die.
possible.
He's a professional at this point, that's not possible. And then she keeps getting the red bubble, parentheses, anxiety. Anxiety for real is just a red text bubble. Let's be for real.
Yeah. A red text bubble in place of your normal pink ones.
Yeah, instead of the normal pink thoughts, the beautiful thoughts, you have Peter's dead. You know, I've been thinking about Peter dying for years.
So she's like freaking out and stuff, because of course naturally.
You're gonna have fun editing that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have fun editing this for sure. This is gonna be a fun edit. We're already at 30 minutes and we're on the second issue. To be fair, it's not that far off. I think we were an hour in by the time we got to the 4th issue of All-Star Superman.
Probably.
That's because you and I had a lot to say about All-Star Superman. Yeah. Anyways, so
She's having the intrusive thoughts about Peter being dead.
Yeah, that is a very normal thing whenever your husband is a superhero.
Yeah, because at first she paints it as her overthinking, and then she's like, wait a minute, my husband is the Spider-Man.
Yeah, he's one Spider's man.
Yeah, who fights very dangerous people on the daily.
Yeah, he does this like every day. He'll be fine, but it's still that nagging feeling. I'm gonna turn the heat off, but it's this nagging feeling like in her head that what if this is different this time?
Yeah, and it starts going with her like panicking herself, and she's like trying to tell herself that it's overthinking. But in reality, she's like, well, I gotta figure something out. So she runs out to the street, and these men start catcalling her. Mm-hmm. And she's like...
she's just trying to walk.
Yeah, she's like, beat it, chump.
Yeah.
And then they're like, hey, pretty lady. And they're like, why are you saying that to me? And so they start running after her, as one man does. I know I've chased many a women in the New York streets.
I gotta cut that out. Wait, the New York streets? We're not from New York. Guys, it's safe to not cut out. Yeah. Oh! It's a national pastime.
Yeah, national pastime.
Harassing New York women.
No, but, so Mary Jane's like, you know, she's scared. She's kind of put into a corner.
Yeah.
And then
she has a little smirk.
Yeah, she has a smirk, and then a hard cuts is showing one
Spider-Man. Yeah. Allegedly a Spider's man.
Yeah, coming down to save her, but then he starts being really aggressive with it, and it's just like, my Peter is loving when he beats up people.
He's not that harsh.
It's not Peter.
Yeah.
And so that's when she starts realizing that there might be something up with the Spider-Man.
I kind of like how she already knows just from how he, like, acts that, like, it's not right. Which, by the way, you know, we missed the start of him eating more spiders, and,
I'm okay with that, actually.
He ate more spiders. See, no. Here's a clip of him eating spiders.
Yeah, because that's when he starts tripping dick.
He starts tripping dick, and there's a big spider. And I like how he's like, I have beaten the spider. I'm so strong. I'm so afraid. I love the humanization of Kraven in this, that even whenever he's tripping dick and seeing a giant spider made of other spiders, he's afraid.
Well, I feel like that fits even more into the male insecurity lens of it all, because if there's one thing that's popular on one's masculine culture, which I know I am at least, not someone who is different from it, is that men don't go to therapy and don't open up about their problems, so they choose to cope through substance abuse. So I feel like him tripping dick
and fighting a big ethereal spider,
especially with the fact that it's like a hallucinogenic, because with him having the whole like hunter theme, we could all like try to put some guess at some type of like ayahuasca type of bullshit.
But that's not the point.
It's fitting. Yeah, which is not the point. But
yeah.
I'm saying like thematically, it makes sense both in the lens and as a big game hunter as Kraven.
Yeah, and someone who is so very much
far gone, and instead of seeking help, decides to kill a Spider-Man and then trip balls to become a better Spider-Man. Yeah, because he basically did the equivalent of, I've killed a cop. Let me take his uniform and drink a gallon of PCP and see if I can make Miami better.
Fight the ethereal cop in all of us.
Yeah, literally.
What is this, kill Hitler?
Literally. And like, he goes around fighting criminals, seeing them as ethereal spiders.
That is not what he does!
That's what he kind of does.
He sees them as weaklings.
Yeah, he sees them as weaklings.
But like, there's this undercurrent with Vermin that the reason why they're talking about Vermin is because obviously that's going to be the fight, right, that Kraven has. But like, yeah, I like how he's just like, he gets overwhelmed by these thoughts of just like, oh, I'm afraid, it's true, I'm nothing but a man, you know, because Kraven's thing is that he doesn't see Spider-Man as a man, kind of like how they talk about in the first issue, is that Peter's like holistic view of Spider-Man as an entity is a person.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is, of course, and by a lot of it I mean all of it is due to the fact that he's been the one behind the costume his entire time of Spider-Man being a thing, is that he doesn't see Spider-Man as the creature or the thing that people are after. He sees the man more than the spider, but Kraven's the opposite.
Yeah, and I was actually thinking about that a while ago, but I lost that in our train of thought with everything that was happening, because it's kind of like the whole thing about like, yeah, he really just does not care about the man behind the spider, because like, dude had him out.
See, I always saw it as...
And bro just buried him and said he could have checked under the mask.
Yeah.
He could have checked his family, the whole thing Spider-Man's afraid for. But
he refuses to believe the idea that Spider-Man is a man. Like, that there's anything human behind the mask.
Yeah, it's just the Spider-Man. It's the illusion.
Yeah.
It's like that whole, like, the Joker knows that he's Bruce Wayne, but he cares about the bat.
No, it's that it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
He doesn't know that he's Bruce Wayne. He just doesn't care.
Yeah.
It's like that, but I feel like Kraven's is a lot more interesting because it's like hard-tailed denialism.
Yeah.
It's not like that dumb little take on the Joker where he doesn't care if Bruce Wayne is Batman. I think it's more... Kraven is in such denial that there is a man behind the spider.
Yeah.
That he... Even with him dead and buried, he refuses to look under the mask.
Yeah, because it's like he refuses there to be a man because he wants to know that if there is a man that could be as the spider, it would be him.
Yeah, he wants to be.
Which is like the whole point.
Which is why he even takes like the place in the first place.
Because to be fair, he doesn't even have the plan of going. Yeah, he takes the place because he doesn't believe there's a man behind the mask, and it isn't until this moment where he's like, "I'm afraid of what's going on," because he's doing the exact same thing as Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. He realizes that the obstacle isn't satisfying enough. He built up this obstacle just for him to realize that it is something a man can do. So he's like, what now? What now? And that's when he comes up with the idea of, I need to be better than the Spider-Man. And that's when he starts getting the plan about Vermin.
Yeah, is that the idea of hunting Vermin is he's the one that he can hunt to prove that he is better than Spider-Man. Because if Spider-Man is just a man, you need another way to defeat the beast.
Yeah, because that's his whole process, because he gives him the context that it required Spider-Man to have Captain America duo with him just to beat Vermin, and even then he barely came out.
And also, keep in mind, Vermin's like a C tier. Yeah. I didn't know who Vermin was until this.
Yeah, and apparently, like, Spider-Man barely came out of it in One Piece, is what Kraven states.
Yeah.
Really?
Sorry, our cat.
I'm getting domestically abused.
I say our cat like we live together. My cat is currently trying to grab Cody's leg.
you have the point where he comes up with the plan to defeat Vermin.
Right. And that's what issue 3 is his whole thing.
Yeah,
which it
that's
opens.
that's the end of issue 2.
The end of issue 2 is actually him saving Mary Jane.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of back and forth. The end of the issue is him saving Mary Jane, but the whole stuff with the spiders, telling it out of order is actually kind of a lot easier because it lets us be a little more consolidated. Yeah. So if we tell it out of order by accident, and you guys read it and you're like, it's not like that. That's fine. We're trying to consolidate our thoughts so we can talk about what we find interesting.
This is our video, bitch.
Yeah, bitch. We're trying to talk about what for us works and resonates on a thematic and like narrative level. But the next issue is the one where he's actually going to fight Vermin.
Yeah.
Right. Where he's kind of plotting and he's sitting there and there's that part where he looks a little bit like Wario.
Yeah.
Oh wait, hang on. We missed the part, but I do want to show you the image of him looking like Wario. Yeah, anyways, so it actually opens with him taking out a group of like drug dealers or whatever, and he's like they scurry like flies. Yeah. And the fucking cops are like, he's like, the cops worship me. I like his weird delusional takes on shit.
Is this where Vermin calls a cop mommy?
That's next.
Oh.
I'm talking about Kraven.
Sorry, my bad. Well, you mentioned a cop, and I was like, that's the one scene I remember with the cops.
Yeah, because Kraven as Spider-Man takes out a bunch of like arms dealers or whatever. And he's like, oh, I devour them. You know, he's treating them like flies, which is so interesting that his narration talks to them like they're animals, which works in character for Kraven. But it's interesting the exact opposite, because again, going back to the first issue, you know, Spider-Man's like, why should I care? He's like, why should I care? They're two big gangsters. They'll do nothing but kill me. But I'm not a spider. I'm not a creature. I'm Peter Parker. You know, he's like, and I guess I do care. And I love that difference is that for Peter, Spider-Man is the man behind the mask. It's him. It's Peter Parker doing the right thing and being the right person, right? Yeah. Whereas with Kraven, it is the mask. And I like this whole idea that he's like, I devour them whenever he takes out people. And he even acts like the cops are like worshipers of his, where he's like, they worship me, you know, they act like they don't, but it's all part of the play. They worship me, you know? And I'm like, that's interesting. And he killed a guy. He fucking killed a guy. Yeah, Spider-Man doesn't kill.
Yeah, it's about the whole power play, which I think even the cops mentioned that, like, that's out of character.
Yeah, because I think one of them's like, it's only 27 to the hospital. And he's like, why? It's like, this one's going to the morgue.
Yeah.
Which means that Kraven punched a guy to death.
Yeah. The ethereal spider.
The ethereal spider is in him.
Yeah. No, but, like, I do find it interesting that, because, like, I guess, like, in an outside perspective, that is what someone like Kraven, because it's the power fantasy.
It's the idea of conquest.
Yeah, it's conquest.
It's not a social service. Being Spider-Man to Peter Parker is a social service.
Yeah, whereas it's just the right thing to do. He's like, to him, to Peter Parker, being Spider-Man is being an an
upstanding citizen.
Upstanding citizen while being like stronger than everyone because he has superpowers.
Yeah.
Versus Kraven, who sees it as a power structure where the cops worship him because why wouldn't they? I make their job easier.
Yeah. Yeah. It's domination culture.
Yeah. Pretty much.
He dominates over the criminals, who dominate over the cops. Therefore, or the cops dominate over the criminals, and Spider-Man dominates over both. So the idea for him is that he, as Spider-Man, is just better. Like he sees it as this might makes right. I'm the strongest one. Of course they worship me. I squat their flies. They eat it up.
Yeah.
I squat their flies for them. They get stuck in my web, and I am worshipped for it, right?
Which I think, as to go back to the thematics parts of it, it is really good thematically for like a big hunter villain kind of dude, because like not only is like the whole like, you know, toxic masculine like macho hunter man, but like also kind of fits into the idea of like the food chain where he feels like he needs to be like the top predator, like the apex.
Yeah.
You know? So I feel like it's just all very fitting for this like power fantasy with Kraven.
Yeah.
They better add this better be strip by strip adaptation of this story in the Kraven movie that Sony's making. Parentheses, they're never gonna put in a normal Spider-Man again after Marvel took him.
My problem with the idea of making a Kraven movie is that, at least in my opinion, Kraven's best story is this one.
Yeah, it is.
And this one, and you can tell, this one is very thematically rich. We're talking about it. And also, a big rat man calls a cop mommy. We're getting to the scene that Cody was just talking about. Anyways, so there's this part after this where Vermin, he, like, eats another woman. He says yum again.
He does say yum.
The rat man says yum, but a bunch of cops, he gets hit by a car, and it's a bunch of cops, and there's one woman who he's like, you remind me of mother. And he licks it, and he goes, I love you, and then runs away. I'm like,
that's my favorite scene of the whole comic, to be honest.
I'm like, why is this important?
Something infantile for male mental illness. Listen, you have to understand, is that for every mentally ill man is a man who wants to be babied. Alright? Personally, I just want to be carried around.
Just like mother.
Just like mother.
Oh, how do you feel about we haven't talked about the artwork at all. How do you feel about the artwork? Before we continue on.
I feel like the artwork's pretty good for, like, I don't know, as I've said,
I feel like
it's dated.
It feels dated, but I feel like it's a good kind of dated where like the use of like shadowing and stuff is really good, and also the neon scene where he punches off a Yeti's head.
Yeah, I say it definitely feels like early 90s where you're kind of, because like
what year was this?
Out of
curiosity.
So like, you know, to divulge from this talk to go on to a short topic real quick for everyone who's listening, parentheses, the 5 people. You know, like, the theme of the 90s that everyone thinks of, where it's, like, the zigzags and, like, really neon colors, and it's, like, you know, the shit they used to see at the old movie theaters, and the jackets, and, like, the old Nike shit. And
1987, so this was late 80s.
Oh, really? Late 80s?
Yeah.
Well, I guess they were just a little bit ahead of their time. So what I was going to is that a lot of that aesthetic that a lot of people think of when it comes to, like, the early 90s, late 80s with, like, retro punk and, like, all the, like, cybernetic shit, and, like, you know, the colorful zigzags, the old theaters, and old Taco Bell and shit like that. It's because aesthetically there was a change in between the 80s and the 90s where they went from a Vice aesthetic, with like the Miami pink flamingos and sunsets and stuff like that, into this like retroactive like wave in the 90s, like early to mid 90s, due to nightclub culture becoming big, because cocaine started nightclub culture in the 80s and then switched to MDMA in the 90s, which is like more hallucinogenic. So there's this giant thematic change in like early adults, which is why we see this entire theme change in a lot of society around that time. But outside of that indulgent, it feels very much of its time.
I'd say because the 90s was when comic art style stopped being so homogenous.
Yeah.
Because if I'm correct, a lot of really good stories for Superman and Batman were both done in the 90s. Killing Joke was done in the 90s, and I feel like it takes steps towards away from that style. But I think this one's pretty good.
I find that very interesting, because I feel like Killing Joke looks older than this.
Killing Joke is older than this.
Oh, I thought you just said Killing Joke was in the 90s.
No, Killing Joke's not the 90s. 1988. It's actually a year younger than Kraven's Last Hunt.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought that Killing Joke would have been older, especially when they have the Grand Wizard writing it.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah.
But it's a year younger than this, because this was 1987, and fucking...
Was Killing Joke the last thing the Wizard worked on?
No, not by a long shot. He worked on V. He worked on V for Vendetta way after this.
I didn't know when V.
He worked on V for Vendetta after this. I'm pretty sure. I need to look at his discography, bibliography. I need to look at his works, because he's definitely, Alan Moore's definitely worked on it. Because I know that the thing I know that he worked on before, the two things, as far as I know, that he worked on before was his 2 Superman stories. I know he worked on, as far as I know, he worked on those before he did Killing Joke.
Yeah, because the only 3 things I know of Alan Moore is The Watchmen, Killing Joke, and V for Vendetta.
But he also did League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, a Swamp Thing run. This is not about Alan Moore. This is... But anyways... Kraven's Last Hunt.
Kraven's Last Hunt.
This would have been a lot weirder if it was written by Alan Moore, is all I'm saying. But yeah, no, he's stalking. He's stalking, he's lurking. He gets in his little scrape with one Vermin. And I think it's a pretty good fight scene. I think it works really well, because it's layered with his narration, right?
Yeah.
Where he's like, you know, he's mine, he's beautiful.
Well, I just find it very interesting.
Yeah, he's like, oh, Spider-Man alone could have never defeated you, but I can, you know?
And,
oh, yeah, I forgot at the very end of that issue. It's because one thing that they've been doing in the art, which is why I wanted to talk about the art, was that they had been every few pages or so, we get a shot of the grave, like, that Peter was put in. And there's a few more spiders every time. At the very end of issue 3, we get his hand pushing through and it's saying Mary Jane ?
Yeah.
And then we get the weird liminal space issue where he's like freaking out, right?
Yeah.
This is such a weird fucking issue. Issue 4, Resurrection. Is there anything you want to say before we talk about the weird naked thing?
He kind of real as fuck for that, I gotta say. The other thing I gotta say is that Kraven, like, that decision to go after Vermin, I still definitely feel fits in with, like, the power fantasy domination thing. Because it's like, when you think about it, Vermin and Kraven are kind of the same, in a way.
Yeah.
Because they're both... The difference between Kraven and Vermin, I feel like, is a perception of their situation. Because Vermin was a man who was forced to become a beast, so he hides himself from society because he gets beats up whenever he gets to the surface. For instance, he's eat a woman.
Yum.
Well, yum. Versus Kraven, who's a man who wanted to be the beast.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a different outlook of two, like, different mentally ill kind of statures, where they're the same in the sense of they're both, like, mentally fucked. But Vermin takes this, like, outcast approach where he's like the perfect definition of antisocial, which is, I think, fits in with, like, the whole cannibalistic idea.
Yeah.
While Kraven is wanting to become the beast, so he's a lot more dominative. And I would argue that the cannibalism still fits in both themes, because Vermin eats these women because he's trying... Yeah. But, like, a lot of it's, like, Vermin trying to deal with his own situation, right?
Yeah, it's out of survival.
I would argue it's not thematically any different than Kraven eating fucking spiders to become the Spider-Man. Yeah. Because, ultimately, Vermin's someone who wants to become
you for
human.
real cannot get over the fact he ate spiders.
Vermin wants to become human, so he eats women. Kraven wants to become the Spider-Man, so he eats spiders. Like, it's thematically very much the same.
Yeah. They're two sides of the same coin, if you will. Anyways,
it's the same coin. It's just like Kraven is a Sigma male, listens to Aiden Ross, follows Andrew Tate.
Vermin, yum. Vermin licks women and says, "Mommy."
Did he just like me for real? For real?
Anyways, Peter Parker's naked in a white void.
Yeah, he just like me.
I like how he hallucinates his long dead friend. By long dead, I mean I don't know how long ago it was that he died. When Ned leads.
Yeah,
and he's like, "Oh, I'm Peter Parker." Oh, wait a minute. And we get the little, like... I always love it when comics do this, because I know they do it in Crisis on Infinite Earths, too. But it's, like, sequential panels of the dude, like, decaying. Yeah. And he's like, wait a minute, I'm Peter Parker, I'm not supposed to be here, what's going on? And, like, Peter hallucinates himself as a spider being attacked by creatures. And I think it's really interesting, because that entire issue is him... Or the majority of that issue is him, like, going through his fucking acid trip where it's like, come on, and he has to...
Kraven gave Peter a fucking ego death.
He gave him an ego death where he's like... Where, like, Peter's, like, freaking out because he's like, what's going on? What do I do? He can't get out of this, like, spiral, right? Because he's spiraling. Yeah. I feel like that's how they do it with the stuff like them overlaying the gunshots.
Yeah.
And what gets him is Mary Jane, where he's like, Mary Jane, I love you, and that's what gets him out of the grave.
Damn, I need me a bitch that can get me out of an ego death.
Oh, yeah, he was in the grave for 2 fucking weeks, and he fucking... Oh, my God, he thrashes fucking...
Yeah, bro was in there for a whole half month.
Dude, in a fortnight.
Left foot, right foot, hit him with that heat.
You know, I can't believe that they predicted Fortnite in Kraven's Last Hunt.
Dude, did you know they made Spider-Man from Fortnite into a real thing?
They must have fucked with my brain, because apparently he's been around since the 60s. Fortnite hasn't been around that long.
Literally.
But no, I'm looking at it, and, so he's like 2 weeks, what the fuck, and he fucking trashes Kraven's crib.
Kraven's crib. Well, like...
God, what I would do to give a fucking, like, MTV style, like, cribs, where it's like, Kraven's like, this is my mansion.
Well, like, I don't know, it all fits in thematically, because it's like something, you know, I would also be angry if that happened, and also...
Yeah, you would be angry if you were drugged into thinking you were dead and buried for 2 weeks? Interesting.
Nah, I do that recreationally, but,
The ego death comes for us all.
Yeah, literally. Well, like, I was gonna say that I feel like if you look at, like, micro-analyzation, I feel like this scene of him getting angry and dashing around the room, because, like, a lot of people are like, oh, Peter Parker doesn't get angry that much. But
Yes, he
like,
does.
He does, but at the same time, we're in Black Suit Spider-Man era.
This is
which
keep in mind. This is him not having Venom.
This is him not having Venom.
It's just the black suit is just cloth in this.
Yeah, but like eventually the Black Suit does become Venom.
Well, no. This is post Venom.
This is post Venom.
Okay, so history lesson. So for a period of time, the black suit.
This is pre Venom.
This is post Venom.
Really?
I think. I'll look it up
Are
later.
you sure? Because I could have swore the first issue of Venom was in '93.
Well, Venom started as a Spider-Man villain. He didn't get his own self-titled until like '93.
Yeah, but the whole I don't know. I remember reading a whole thing about Venom with the whole Black Suit Spider-Man.
'84.
Really?
Yeah,
Venom's that old?
Venom's that old. It's
I thought
post
Venom
Venom.
was the '90s.
No, Venom was the '80s. He has the perception of the '90s because that's when he got his self-titled. That's whenever he became the character of his own comic.
Yeah, where Seth MacFarlane, a Family Guy,
What?
made Venom.
What?
Venom.
You mean Todd McFarlane? You mean Todd McFarlane?
I purposely did that.
You mean Todd McFarlane?
Yeah, I do mean Todd McFarlane.
No, we're sitting in this silence.
I mean, you can say as long as you want. I'm not being silent. I made it funny.
So this was post Venom.
Alright.
Because the Venom suit thing they did was kind of a cool idea, and people hated it because comic book people hate change. If you didn't know that,
Well, my thing is like, if it's post Venom, why did they keep the black suit?
oh, because it was super popular.
Oh, really?
So what happens is that people hated the Venom suit, right? So they made Venom a villain. They made the Venom suit a villain because he used to just be a black and white suit, right? That had some cool properties. It was a status quo change, basically.
Yeah.
Which, as we all know,
new edgier Spider-Man who health regen really quick and this and that.
yeah, and his suit could become his clothes and didn't have to rely on webbing. Anyways,
Yeah.
people hated it because comic book people hate change.
Yeah.
And then they got rid of it, made it make its own thing. But people were like, "Hey, the black suit was kind of cool. We liked the black suit. Why did you guys get rid of it?"
Average
Average-
people disliking change but liking it at the same time.
Yeah.
There
So
is no winning.
So they brought back a cloth version of the suit, and that's what this is. It's the period of time where it was the cloth Venom suit,
Yeah.
where it was visually
Amazing
Venom,
Spider-Man.
where it was visually the Venom suit, but it wasn't Venom.
Yeah.
They got rid of it after a while because the Venom's his own character now, so you can't really have both suits. Anyways, but that's why no, it's a cloth suit. It's not the Venom symbiote. In Chip Zdarsky's Spider-Man life story, it actually is the Venom suit.
Interesting.
Yeah, we're gonna read life story eventually. I need to read it, but I've been told it's very good. He gets out of the thing. He's like 2 weeks, and he sees that Kraven's like tarnishing his image, and he goes after him. And whenever he eventually gets to
The marketability of Spider-Man.
whenever he eventually gets to one Kraven's last hunt. Oh, I forgot he does that first. So he goes and sees Mary Jane, right? Which very lovely. The fact that he does get to go see Mary Jane, and Mary Jane's like, "You need to be resting. Do not put that fucking suit back on. Are you fucking crazy?" And he's like, "I promise I will relax whenever this is all over." Famous Spider-Man last words come up. That's just kind of the whole idea of Spider-Man is I will relax whenever it's
done.
Yeah, I'll relax whenever it's over. It's never over.
He for real the blue collar hero.
He really is. Well, we'll talk more about our thoughts because, like I said, the last few episodes we've done where we talked about a character that we hadn't covered before, we give our thoughts on them.
Oh, yeah, this is, I guess, our first Spider-Man.
This is our first Spider-Man episode. This is our first Spider-Man one. It's not going to be our last. We have another Spider-Man one planned before too long. Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. But yeah, no, she's like freaking out, and she's like, "Oh, Spider-Man's probably dead. That's not Spider-Man." And then he comes back and he's relaxing, and he can't stop thinking about the fact that it's been like 2 fucking weeks.
Yeah.
And I like what they do with his voice, where they give it like to show that it's been hatchy, is that they give it like the dotted lines around his speech bubbles, which I think was super cool. Especially whenever on a backdrop, it makes it look kind of like, you know what I mean? I love how comics convey stuff like raspy voices or like disjointed thoughts. I really like that, and I think this comic does a really good job because letterers don't get the respect they deserve, but letterers and the people who make the speech bubbles, they don't get the respect they deserve a lot of the time. But anyways, I really like how they do it because they do stuff like flooding the background of a shot with like the same words over and over again, or the darker thought like bubbles where it's like dead, or like it's like intrusive thoughts, or like how they do his raspy voice. I know it's small things, but it's really good.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's really well done. But anyways, he leaves and he's like, oh, I gotta go. I gotta deal with fucking one Kraven the Last Hunter. I keep calling him Kraven the Last Hunter, not Kraven the Hunter, because I think it's funnier. But anyways, he gets into the scenario, and the two of them, get into a scuff, right? And fucking Kraven gets fucking naked in front of him.
He's literally his hell.
He's like, I mean no harm, Spider-Man. But no, I like how he knows Spider-Man so well. He's like, I know you've got that sense. Is anything coming ahead?
Yeah. And he's just like, if I was gonna attack you, like,
you would have been attacked by now. Like,
yeah, literally. He is like, I know you ain't dumb.
Yeah. And I like how he like gets Vermin in a cage, and they basically explain that like the conditioning that Kraven has done to him has conditioned him to fear that suit, even though it's not Peter.
Yeah.
It's him. So of course, he gets in this whole scenario, and Kraven's like,
skip the whole Vermin Kraven fight?
No, we didn't. We talked about it.
Did we?
Just not for long.
Yeah.
Because it's a good fight. It looks good. Did you have stuff you want to say about it?
No, I couldn't remember if we talked about it.
We talked about it, just not for long.
So much.
Because Kraven's fight is really good, and I kind of like how his narration is like, oh, I'm better than you, can do it by yourself. We said that.
Yeah.
But it's still good. But I like how he's got Kraven, he's got Vermin, and like he's thinking to himself, he's like, despite all the pain that this man has caused, Kraven's like, I know he's gonna try and save Vermin. Yeah, using it to his advantage. And Kraven's like, Vermin, that's the one that attacked you. And then and then like they get into him and Spider-Man and Vermin get into the scuffle, and then he runs away.
He wants Spider-Man. He wants the fight to happen, and he knows Spider-Man's not going to initiate. So
It's kind of how he does it. And Kraven's like, I did what you couldn't. I beat him by himself. No Captain's American.
Because he kind of the whole thing is that he's throwing Spider-Man under the bus because he's like, I did it. Now let's see if you can do it. Because
that's basically what the whole deal with the final fight is at the very end, which is Spider-Man versus Kraven, or Spider-Man versus Vermin, the real Spider-Man, because that's like the last issue, which I thought was crazy that it didn't end on the big thing where Spider-Man leaves to go after Vermin, and we get Kraven being like, Mom and Pop, I'll see you soon. And he gets into a nice...
finally figure out what Kraven's talking about when he's like, yeah, I'm going to be dead soon.
Is that he kind of just goes up, gets into a nice bathrobe. He says goodbye. Like in his monologue, he says goodbye. And he's saying goodbye to Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Because there's this really nice part while Spider-Man's running to go chase Vermin, where we see this like sorrowful look in Kraven's eyes.
Yeah.
Which I think is really interesting. Because the big thing about this comic...
He also tells him that he's like, oh, I'm not going anywhere, trust me. He was like... Because Kraven turns to him, he's like, I promise you, this is my last hunt. There are no more hunts after this. I'm going to be here. Yeah. Which... Spider-Man's like, I don't believe this, but I'll come back after Vermin if you're really going to be here. And Kraven's like, I've never lied to you.
Yeah. He's a man of his word.
Yeah, call Kraven what you want.
Yeah.
But he's an honest individual.
He talks about how peaceful he is and how, like, fleeing Russia and being stuck in America and how he feels a peace and calmness and ending. And he talks about how, like, people thought his mom was insane, you know? But to him, she wasn't crazy. She just saw the truth, right?
Yeah.
And then...
Yeah. He shoots himself.
He shoots himself in the mouth, and he dies, which is a crazy, insane ending for 1987.
Yeah.
Of a character that's been around since, like, the 60s.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, I feel like it's a really poignant ending for Kraven as a character, because it shows him just kind of, like, who he is as a person. Because he's won. Kraven wins. The moral of the story, Kraven wins.
Yeah, like he has traumatized the Spider. He has done what he wanted. He has got his impact. Peter Parker, for the rest of his life, will be like, am I doing enough? Because Kraven, this horrible person, was able to do better than I could.
Yeah.
He's done what he wanted, which was to traumatize the Spider. And then the fight with Vermin happens.
Which I kind of like how during the fight with Vermin, he's like, I don't want to be down here. I don't want to do this. This is awful. And he has these moments where he thinks back about him being buried alive. Because the big thing that we find out in the last issue is that Kraven didn't actually kill Peter. He basically simulated death.
Yeah.
which I think is crazy. But like, she's like Kraven's demented game. He doesn't want in here. They overlay him going through the tunnel with him being in the coffin,
Casket, yeah.
which I think is a super cool visual detail. But he's just constantly he's like, I'm not dead, I'm not dead, I'm not dead, and he goes. Kraven's being like things. The police are investigating Kraven's mansion. They find evidence that it was all Kraven the whole time, those 2 weeks, which is I find it interesting that in his last moments he didn't try and tarnish.
Did they find the evidence? Because I swore the panel was that Kraven himself mailed it to them.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Oh no! I'm looking at it. They're in his place.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the final confession of Kraven the Hunter, and they show like how it wasn't Spider-Man, it was him. So he even goes out of his way to clear
Spider-Man's name.
Which I find crazy, which means that it was all about the game.
Yeah. Kraven does not care about ruining Spider-Man's competition. He cares about getting in Spider-Man's head.
Yeah.
He doesn't care about the image of the Spider-Man. He doesn't care about the criminals or how the cops view the Spider-Man. He cares about what Spider-Man himself is thinking.
Yeah. I like how Peter's time in like the thing has kind of changed him a little bit, because he's kind of rough to Vermin.
Yeah.
And in his monologue, he's like, I don't want to do this. What am I doing? Like, he slams him, and he slams him in the face, and he's like, why did I do that? You know? Yeah. Where like he's like trying to talk reason to Vermin, and he's like, it was Kraven. It wasn't me. And he goes, he's like the little rat, you know, like he slams like Vermin in the face. He's like, why did I do that? I don't want to hurt him.
Yeah.
You know? It's because he's been altered by this thing where like he's remembered that this is just a man that needs help. Right?
Spider-Man needs a therapist after this.
Yeah. He remembers that Vermin is a man who needs help and that he must do the right thing. You know, he's got to find some way to help him, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't want to be there. He wants to be at home. He wants to be where it's safe. He can't let the fear stop him. Right?
Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing from the actual thing. He travels, you know, the fight of Vermin, he gets him up to the surface, and they eventually, like, arrest Vermin, and he's like, what does he say? He goes, after all Kraven's done, how can he know what Kraven's done? I suppose I'll find out once I get back to Kraven's townhouse. Oh no.
Yeah, because isn't it before he even gets back there, he sees in the newspaper about, like, Kraven did it?
Yeah. And the last thing we see, yeah, Kraven's confession, yeah. The last thing we see from Peter is him at home with Mary Jane where he's supposed to be. And the last panel the last few pages are of Kraven going, you know, being buried.
Yeah.
Which...
right next to the grave of Spider-Man.
Which I find really interesting. But this is a very interesting story, and that it's more than just the hook of what if Spider-Man loses.
Yeah.
It's poignant. It knows what it's talking about.
It's the spiral of a man who thinks that he's winning.
It treats death maturely.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. I'm not used to that in comics.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, they did kind of shit on this down the line and have the new Kraven be Kraven's son so they could keep doing Kraven storylines, which was a thing. Which I think it's better if Kraven just kind of stayed retired.
Yeah.
As, like, a character concept. But you're right. It's this idea of a spiral of a man, which you're going to have to be over here for it to pick you up. But, like, it's this idea of, like, a spiral, right? Where Kraven's downhill. Kraven's not doing well. He needs a therapist, but instead he shot himself in the face.
Yeah. It reminds me... so, like, the whole Spider-Plan hunt thing... it reminds me a lot of what a lot... this fits in, as I said, into the male insecurity power fantasy. It fits into what a lot in the business call virtual suicides, which... well, I mean, obviously, he ended up killing himself too.
Let's say you keep talking, I'm gonna get water.
Virtual suicide people. So, to give a short historical detour, I once did a report on the infamous man known as Mark Chapman, who is famously known for doing the same thing Kraven did, but instead to his head, it was to John Lennon's face with a snub-nosed revolver. And Mark Chapman's whole thing is that it was this idea of a virtual suicide. And what they mean by that is that someone who's extremely mentally unwell will sometimes align themselves mentally into a parasocial idea where they envision themselves as another person. Yeah. Before Mark Chapman had done the deed of slaying 1/4 of the Beatles, he was so in tune with John Lennon that for the past week before he left, he signed everything in his name, including his timesheets at work, his packages, his signatures, as John Lennon. And prior to these events, he had tried to kill himself about 3 separate times and failed. So to him, killing John Lennon, because he had such an attunement with him mentally, was a way of like him killing himself. Which is why when Mark Chapman had done it, he just sat there on the corner, reading his favorite book, which was one, Catcher in the Rye, another power fantasy that's supposed to talk about male insecurities, but in reality it's written by a dude who likes the male fantasy. But I'm not here to rant about how Catcher in the Rye is the one power fantasy male insecurity story that does it wrong. That's for its own thing. But that's what I'm getting at. In this situation, Spider-Man is John Lennon, Kraven is Mark Chapman. And he's just so unwell that he's able to not look at the past, that to him, destroying the Spider-Man is what he needs to do to bypass himself. You know what I mean? Because that's why he does it. That's why at the beginning he's like, not yet. Because if he was a man who was like truly just suicidal, this wouldn't be a story. He would have just killed himself.
Yeah, this would be like 5 pages long.
Yeah. Instead, he sets through this whole convoluted thing because to him, being better than the Spider-Man is like him killing himself. Because if that's the only goal in his life is to try and defeat the Spider-Man, there is literally nothing else.
Yeah.
So, in reality, this entire story is just a convoluted way of a very unwell man finding a way to kill himself. Which is a very interesting thing to have in
your Spider-Man comic.
The dude who fights the big wheel on a weekly basis.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought this was a very interesting read. I thought that like I said, that first chapter alone, that first issue is incredibly kinetic. I feel like it has a really good flow. I feel like it very much does a really good job of setting up the themes that what we're dealing with in this, because we have the answer for who's tomorrow. It's Kraven. It's yesterday Ned Leeds, today Joe Face, tomorrow Kraven.
Yeah.
Right? But it's just, I don't know, it's I really like it, is what I'm saying.
I feel like this entire story, like on the Spider-Man perspective at least, I feel like it's definitely like a maturity point for Spider-Man. Because it's like, I don't know. When I think of Spider-Man, I don't think about the idea, like, I always think about, friendly neighborhood web swing, time to save the day again. I never really think about, like, the idea of, like, Spider-Man's eventually gonna have to, like, face the music that, like, people that he's affected is going to die, whether it be his loved ones or, like,
his greatest enemies.
Because, like, obviously we know the tragedy of, like, it's Uncle Ben or Aunt May, and sometimes both. I never, like, usually it's, like, a tragedy that sets him to be this, like, altruistic idea. But I never really think about the idea of, like, because, like, he doesn't do killing. So, like, what happens when people do the killing? You know what I mean? Because that's what I think was very... like, the biggest thing that happened in the Spider-Man 2 game with Kraven. Because ultimately, Kraven was still a maturing point for Spider-Man, because in the first time in those games, a villain dies, and it's Venom killing Kraven.
Yeah.
So,
massive spoilers.
Yeah, massive spoiler.
Yeah. But
at the end of the day, it's still Kraven... basically, because like in both stories, Kraven's traumatizing Spider-Man to a point of maturity. I feel like it is.
Yeah.
Kraven, I feel like, is a stepping stone in Spider-Man, which is why I agree that I don't like that. Like they should have just retired him with this story.
Yeah.
Is that I feel like Kraven's supposed to be the stepping point of more of like.
You can't be the same after this.
Yeah, like morality, like, or that's not the word I'm looking for. Like the idea that you're moral.
Yeah.
That no one lives forever. People are going to die.
Yeah.
And like I feel like that puts more, because that's also a reason like. The whole Gwen Stacy catching scene's important with like the Amazing Spider-Man movies and the comic, where he is trying to save Gwen Stacy and then he can't.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be like, oh shit, people are going to die. So I feel like it's definitely a maturing stepping point. I feel like that is where Kraven works best, is to be like, you are traumatized forever, Spider-Man.
Would you like to see my rifle in my mouth?
For real, for real.
Yeah. On God, Spider-Man.
So real.
So I wanted to, we're at about an hour and 15 minutes, and that's usually shorter than our normal one, so it's time to increase this by like an hour and talk about our thoughts on Spider-Man as a character.
We need that runtime. We're not getting paid to do this.
We're not getting paid to do this, but I do like it whenever we have our little conversations about characters. So I wanted to know Spider-Man as a character, because I love Spider-Man. I think he's a very interesting character. I think there's a lot to him that most people, because I feel like Spider-Man is that one character where everyone's on board.
Well, I think that's why a lot of people kind of regard, outside of like maybe like the X-Men as a debate, as like Spider-Man being one of like Stan Lee's crowning achievements, because it was literally just like a working class hero for New York, and I think that's why he's such a big icon when it comes to like the Marvel scene, because I can't think of anyone else that in Marvel that has a better like you can relate to more.
Yeah.
Because he's just like probably their most human character. It's kind of like what we said in All-Star Superman with like Superman, even though he's like alien, he's the most human out of all the characters.
Yeah, he's an alien that just so happens to be human.
Yeah, Spider-Man is a man who just happens to be a spider. And that's kind of the end of it. Like,
yeah,
most, like
it's in the name.
Half of everything with Spider-Man, like you have the fights, you have being Spider-Man, and the other half is, oh, gee whiz, I'm not going to make rent today because I didn't get enough pictures of J. Jonah Jameson.
If I'm correct, it's referred to as the Parker luck.
Yeah.
Where it's the idea that, like, things can always get worse for Spider-Man, right?
Well, because that's the thing. Whenever, okay, I do not think of another superhero, in my opinion, where the human identity matters just as much as the superhero identity.
The only other, well, to be fair, Marvel's kind of big for that, and the only other character I can think of off the top of my head is Daredevil.
Yeah, Daredevil.
But that's also because Daredevil has a very important profession, that being as a lawyer.
Yeah, I was saying, because a lot of the other hero shit that I see, a lot of time, if they are in, like, they're focusing on, like, the human aspect of their character, it is for, like, a humanistic reason, where they're trying to make them come down to earth a little bit. Maybe it's a maturing point or, like, a turning where, like, a climax has happened. Yeah. We're reeling down for, like, the second climax where the hero ends. Because it's like, let's be for real. Deep dive into anything Batman related. You're only following Bruce Wayne
for maybe like a collective like 5 pages.
Yeah, and even then, it's either to make him seem more human, and Alfred comes in and he's like, "You got to realize you're just a man, Mr. Wayne."
Even in books that I would argue focus on the human aspect of Batman, like Batman Earth 1, I still feel like their focus is at the end of the day on Batman.
Like the only DC character I can think of where like a lot of the human aspect matters is the Superman, but I feel like you kind of have to with
it's also
storytelling.
In more of an idealistic sense of him being a man of like care, you know what I mean?
And even with the one thing we did read with Superman in it, I would argue still that there's still a lot of less of Clark Kent, and Clark Kent is really only shown like at the beginning when he's like, you know, showing his girlfriend Lois Lane that he's Superman, and then whenever he is going through the prison and Lex Luthor shows his escape, he's like, "Oh, you big oaf."
Yeah, but
like Peter Parker is a lot more important in my opinion.
Well, because the way that I make it that makes it different from other characters, even in the Marvel universe, is that from a day-to-day life perspective, in the most human way possible, not in the sense that Bruce Banner is the Hulk or that Matt Murdock has to go be Daredevil. Being Spider-Man is shown to consistently get in the way of his everyday life.
Yeah, because of the, like in this one you see the damage on the like I shouldn't say damage because like there is a happy outcome at the end.
Yeah.
But we do see a turmoil, a problem arising within like the second issue about Mary Jane, with the idea that she's like a normal woman would be out, drinking overly expensive alcohol and getting dicked down in Aruba
by her husband.
Yeah, by her husband. But instead, I've been practically alone for a week in my fucking cheap ass studio apartment in New York.
Yeah.
Versus like all the other characters where it's like the shit Clark. We get him taking Lois up in the sky and kissing and whatever, and then going to whatever. What
I really need you to read the War World saga.
Why?
I'll tell you after we stop recording.
Okay, real.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know. I feel like there's always like in most plot points when Mary Jane's present, she's very much, and like obviously this is kind of, I don't want to say writing of the times because I don't know if the comics have gotten better with it or like storytelling for Spider-Man's gotten better with it anyway. But I feel like Mary Jane's very much used as a plot structure to show how much Spider-Man's fucking up Peter's life, because most of the time I see Mary Jane, it's I never have time for Mary Jane because I'm Spider-Man and it's harming my relationship with her, my girl next door forever wife.
God, I wish it was Forever Wife, man.
That's why I'm glad when they made her more important by being the worst missions in the first game.
And then incredibly fun in the second.
Yeah,
I don't like how fun they are in the second.
I don't want to dog on the second Spider-Man
because they
made them infinitely better.
They made them fun.
Who would have thought making Mary Jane better would be to give her a gun?
But no, because there's a human, because I feel like the deal with Spider-Man is that a good writer with Spider-Man focuses on the fact you can tell incredibly humanistic stories with him. You can tell relatable stories with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And that's why I really love the anyone can wear the mask idea, is stuff like, you've got people like characters like Gwen Stacy's Spider-Woman or Miles Morales. Yeah. You've got characters who have their own things, and I believe there's been multiple people who are like, Spider-Man's kind of a great way to interrogate stuff like class structure, poverty, and for characters like Miles Morales and Gwen Stacy, women and people of color's place in society.
Yeah.
You know.
Because even though I'm going to sit here and I feel like Mary Jane's been used a lot more as, like, I don't want to use the word damsel in distress. Like, obviously there was a
it depends on the era, but you're not necessarily wrong.
There are areas where she's a damsel in distress, but I do feel like she's a lot more used as the plot point of, like, showing how much the job stresses his relationships. Mm-hmm. I still feel like Spider-Man is ultimately a story of Peter Parker that is being marketed as Spider-Man. You know what I mean? Where, like, ultimately Peter Parker comes first in these stories, not the other way around.
Which, to be fair, that is kind of Marvel's way of doing it, because again, it's how they are. One of my favorite Daredevil runs, which is Chip Zdarsky's 2019 run, is very similar. Where the idea of Daredevil is Matt Murdock's life is different because he's Daredevil, you know.
Yeah.
And I like that, and we'll get to Daredevil eventually. We're gonna read a Daredevil story.
Dare on my devil.
She does dare on my devil till I go blind.
That's so real.
But I think it's a thing with Marvel storytelling is that, and this is the thing I will say I love over DC, is that DC does have really interesting ideological characters, but Marvel makes more human characters. Yeah. Marvel makes characters who are not perfect. They make characters who are blind. They make characters who are suffering from mental illness. They make characters who have been through severe traumas. Yeah. They make characters who can, in the face of insurmountable trauma, still come out on top.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting. Which I think is awesome, and it leads to more humanistic storytelling. You know.
I say one day a company called Marvel hired a young Jewish man from New York, and then he created the two most like relatable comic book like human series ever, and he became the biggest comic book name.
What's the other one? X-Men?
Yeah, X-Men.
Yeah,
because if Peter Parker's about the humanity of like
the working class
and all that, then X-Men is about race relation. Like that's how it's always been. X-Men's always been an allegory for how we treat minorities.
Marginalized people. Yeah. And I always find that interesting. You got to remember, but at the end of the day, we still live in a corporate structure. These are still companies owned by corporate businesses, but it's still good stories.
I'm not praising the Marvel company. I am strictly praising the man himself,
the writers. Yeah. But no, because we're not blind to that reality. But you also got to realize that the importance is on the good stories. And that's what we get. That's what we get, especially with Spider-Man. Spider-Man has a lot of good stories. You can throw a stone and you'll get 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, a whole bunch of great Spider-Man stories, whether in continuity or not.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say? We're at an hour 30.
Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. I don't know the rest of the song because I'm going to be real with you. I've never actually heard that song as a kid because I didn't watch that show.
I did because and this is an anecdote that I think I'm going to keep in. We had a family friend who sometimes I would stay, it was like an older lady, a church lady, right? Because my parents went to church. Who I would stay at her house sometimes because my parents would go on vacation or something and they need someone to babysit her. And for whatever reason, I don't know what channel she had, but it would play the 90s. It would play the old 60s show, kind of. But it would play a shit ton of the 90s Spider-Man show.
That's kind of real.
I fucking love the 90s animated Spider-Man show because I watched it a bunch as a kid.
So I think I've seen it a few times. Which one is the animated Spider-Man where he has the scene where he grows an extra pair of arms?
That's the 90s animated show.
Yeah, that's the one I watched as a kid.
Anyways, so we're going to talk real quick about upcoming episodes. We do have a little marathon plan, which we're not going to say just yet. But not tomorrow. Next episode. Not next week.
We cannot guarantee it's going to be a week.
Hopefully this next one will be a lot quicker. I feel like the next one's going to be more editing is the problem than necessarily, what's it called? Editing's going to be more the situation than it is like us actually getting around to reading it, because the next one, we decided that every 5th episode, we're going to be watching like a movie or something that's comic book related.
Yeah.
We're not going to say what we're going to do. I want to keep it a surprise.
Yeah, real.
Just in case it falls through.
Yeah, because we've already have been debating on a few.
Yeah, which I think we have a solid outline of what we're going to do, but we're not going to say it because we want to make it a little bit of
we already strayed away from our original idea.
Yeah. But yeah, no, look forward to that, guys. Hopefully it'll be a fun episode. I hope it doesn't get more views than the regular comic book stuff, but it probably will, because I'm going to try. I'm going to try and do some more editing, try and make it a little bit. It might actually also end up being a shorter episode, too.
Yeah.
Which is likely, because we might not talk about the plot as much, but it'll be a lot more research and shit. Holy shit. I might make you do the research for these episodes.
Real.
Anyways, we hope you guys really did enjoy this episode. And remember, guys, read comics.
Yeah, I'm Spider-Man.
You're not.